We all face an unseen enemy, a silent adversary that, if left unchallenged, can slowly take control of our lives. It's not outside of us. It's not that person constantly criticizing everything you do, nor the boss who seems never satisfied. This enemy lives much closer than you think. It lives inside your mind. It's that voice that appears every time you want to try something new and whispers, "You better give up. You're not good enough." What if it all goes wrong? At first, this voice sounds like a normal worry, but over time it traps you. It makes you believe you can't do it, that you're not capable, until fear stops you from taking action. But here's the truth. That voice isn't you. It doesn't define what you can do, your worth, or even what you deserve. This inner chatter is simply a reflection of your fears, a distorted version of reality trying to deceive you. When you understand this, everything changes. You realize you don't have to accept everything your mind tells you. You can learn to question, challenge these thoughts, and choose to believe in something better. The strength to do this is already within you. It resides in your ability to look beyond fear, think clearly, and use reason as your compass. The Stoics always taught that true power comes from mastering your emotions, and that's precisely what transforms your mind from enemy to partner. In this video, you'll discover how to regain control of your thoughts, combining the wisdom of Stoicism with practical techniques proven by science. Now is the time to change the game. As Plato said, the first and greatest victory is to conquer oneself. When you learn to control your mind, your thoughts become your allies, and you gain the strength to live with clarity every day. Before we begin, if this is your first time on the channel, subscribe, like, and turn on notifications so you don't miss future content. 1. Nip it in the bud. Imagine you're organizing a drawer at home. At first, it seems like just a small mess, a pen without ink, a crumpled piece of paper, a key you don't even know where it came from. But if you leave it like that, the clutter will grow over time. So it's best to clean up quickly, remove what's no longer useful, and leave space only for what's useful and necessary. The same goes for the mind. The sooner you remove the bad stuff, the lighter everything becomes. None of this seems like a big deal at first, so you let it be. But over time, this drawer starts to fill with useless things, and before you know it, it's overflowing with objects that only take up space and make it difficult to find what really matters. Now imagine your mind as this drawer. Small negative thoughts, tiring situations, or people who drain you may seem harmless at first, but if you don't take care of them, they accumulate, take up too much space, and end up suffocating your inner energy. Seneca said that the wise man is at peace with himself, and therefore does not need the approval of others. When you accept things that harm you, be they habits, ideas, or relationships, you are exchanging your tranquility for something that weakens you. You are using your mind's space for things that do not bring growth. Marcus Aurelius also taught, it's foolish to not avoid your own evil, which is avoidable, and to try to prevent the evil of others, which is beyond your control. In other words, when you let something negative continue in your life, it's like leaving a faucet dripping. At first it seems like no big deal, but over time the loss is enormous. And when you finally realize it, you discover you've lost something you can never get back: your time. Bad thoughts, bad attitudes, and people who don't respect your boundaries are like this open faucet. You can pretend not to see it, but if you do nothing, it will grow until it steals what's most precious to you: your peace and your inner truth. Nipping evil in the bud requires courage and honesty with yourself. It's not about acting out of anger. It's about looking honestly and asking, does this still make sense to me? Sometimes it's a simple habit that needs changing. Other times it's a friendship or relationship that's past its prime. At these times, it's common to make excuses. It's not that bad, or I'll figure it out later. But putting off what needs to be done only adds to the burden. When you learn to set boundaries and say no to what hurts you, you're practicing self-respect and saying yes to what truly matters. You don't owe explanations to others. The commitment you need to fulfill is to yourself. This will help you see people, situations, and burdensome habits with new eyes. It's like pruning a tree. You cut away the dead branches so it can grow back strong and beautiful. The same is true of life. To truly flourish, you need to remove what hinders its growth. Every conscious choice is a step toward greater clarity and freedom. Life isn't about accumulating everything that comes your way, but about carefully choosing what's worth keeping and letting go of what's already served its purpose. Practice this in the coming days. Live more lightly, creating space in your mind for what truly makes sense and brings you peace. 2. Don't let the environment contaminate you. Have you ever noticed how the mood or attitudes of those around you can completely transform your day? The environment has enormous power and often acts silently. Imagine you're in a small restaurant and someone next to you is wearing a very strong perfume. Even if you've only worn a small amount, that scent ends up clinging to you, lingering on your clothes and even on your skin. Negativity works the same way. It's like an invisible smoke that spreads and fills the air. You might start the day excited, full of good ideas, but after hearing complaints, criticism, or harsh words, your energy is slowly drained. And without realizing it, you may start thinking or acting the same way, as if you were being pulled into that bad mood. This doesn't just happen in your thoughts. Science explains this effect through so-called mirror neurons. They function like tiny antennas in the brain, picking up on what those around us are feeling. When we live with someone who is constantly negative, our brain begins to mimic those emotions, as if we were being shaped by that energy. Therefore, where you spend your time and the people around you play a crucial role in how you feel inside. But there is a solution. Imagine a smoky, hot, and difficult-to-breathe room. What would you do? Maybe you'd open the windows, turn on a fan, or simply leave. It's similar with your mind. You can choose what you let in and what you'd rather keep out. As Seneca said, surround yourself with people who help you grow, and also try to be someone who helps others grow. This doesn't mean escaping the world or living in isolation, but learning to set clear boundaries around what deserves your attention and energy. Letting everything in without thinking is like living in a house without doors during a storm. You can't stop the rain, but you can prevent it from destroying the interior of your home. Modern psychology also addresses this. Daniel Goleman, author of the book Emotional Intelligence, explains that bad feelings spread easily, like a cold. But when you learn to understand your own emotions, you begin to recognize what's truly yours and what comes from others. It's like putting a glass door in your mind. You see what's outside, but decide what you want to let through. Taking care of your mind is a daily practice. If bad news, social media, or certain places are leaving you tired and unmotivated, try turning off the television, putting away your phone for a while, or even unfollowing people who are bad for you. Use these moments to do things that recharge your energy. Take a walk in a park, talk to someone who inspires you, or dedicate time to something that makes you feel good. Another powerful way to strengthen your mind is to practice calm. You can do this by meditating, reading something uplifting, or simply spending a few minutes in silence. These practices build what the Stoics called an inner fortress, a space within you that remains steadfast, even when the world outside is in chaos. Remember, you can't control the storm, but you can control how much it enters your home. When someone tries to pull you into pessimism or disturb your peace, choose to protect yourself. Create a space within yourself where your thoughts and feelings are safe, and focus your attention only on what truly matters. 3. Create a relapse protocol. A fall isn't the end. It's a reminder that you're still a work in progress. No disciplined mind is made of uninterrupted victories. Even the wisest fail, falter, lose focus, and stray. What sets them apart isn't the absence of setbacks, but how they react when they do. True strength lies in knowing what to do after of the error. The Stoics understood this clearly. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, wrote, "When you get up as one who resumes duty, not as one who starts from scratch." This phrase holds an essential lesson. Relapse does not erase progress. Failure is not the opposite of progress, but part of it. The problem is not falling, but not having a plan to get back up. Create a relapse protocol. It's preparing for the inevitable. It's recognizing that the human mind fluctuates and that self-mastery is a practice, not a permanent state. When you prepare yourself to deal with imbalance, you transform relapse into a rite of strengthening. What once brought you down now teaches you. Think of a climber slipping during an ascent. They don't panic because they already know what to do. They hold the rope, regain their balance, and continue. The secret isn't in never slipping, but in having a system that prevents you from falling. The same should be true of your mind. Protocol is the rope that keeps you from falling into the abyss of self-sabotage. To build yours, follow 3 fundamental phases. Recognize, readjust, and resume. 1. Acknowledge without drama. The first reaction to a relapse is usually guilt or denial. But the Stoic doesn't judge himself. He observes. He says to himself, I realized the slip-up. Now I'm coming to my senses. This simple attitude changes everything. Guilt is paralyzing, awareness is liberating. When you make a mistake and immediately seek to understand, because instead of condemning himself, has already taken the first step back into order. Do what Marcus Aurelius did. Observe the error as a doctor observes a symptom, without anger, without haste, just with curiosity and clarity. Ask yourself, what caused this relapse? Was it tiredness, distraction, emotion, environment? How can I prevent the same trigger from overtaking me again? This simple act of naming the error takes away its power. What is observed loses its control over you. 2. Reset the system. A relapse reveals a flaw in the system, not in your personal worth. Maybe the plan was too good for the moment, maybe the routine didn't fit reality, maybe the environment was sabotaging your discipline. Seneca said, "The wise man does not blame the gods nor fate, but adjusts his sail to the wind." This means that every mistake is an opportunity to calibrate the method. If you fail to maintain a habit, don't ask yourself, why didn't I succeed? But rather, how can I make this more achievable? Maybe the mistake was trying to wake up at 5 a.m. without going to bed early, or trying to cut everything at once instead of gradually reducing. Relapse shows you where the plan was too rigid to be sustainable. Adjust the size of the goal, eliminate the excess, and return to the essentials. It's also worth reviewing your environment. Neuroscience shows that much of our automatic behavior is guided by visual and auditory contexts. If your environment pushes you toward error, changing it means changing your destiny. 3. Resume quickly. The last step of the protocol is the most important. Act before the mind makes excuses. The longer it takes you to get up, the more your brain associates falling with failure. Therefore, the recovery needs to be quick, even if small. Epictetus taught, it is not what happens that defeats you, but the time it takes you to react. Getting back doesn't mean recovering everything at once, but taking the first step in the right direction. If you've broken your reading routine, read a page today. If you've lost focus on your workout, go back for 10 minutes. The goal isn't to prove strength, it's to regain rhythm. Consistency is rebuilt through action, not through guilt. And here's the secret. Each time you apply your protocol, your brain learns that failure isn't the end, it's part of the process. This creates a virtuous cycle. Failure stops being an enemy and becomes a learning trigger. Behavioral psychology calls this practical resilience, the ability to transform interruptions into conscious new beginnings. On days when everything feels out of control, go back to basics. Breathe deeply. Observe without judging yourself. Fix one detail, not everything. Take the simplest step possible. These minimal gestures build a kind of silent strength, the strength of someone who falls but never loses themselves. Remember, the wise man does not seek perfection, but rather returns. The Stoic is not defined by error, but by the response to error. As Marcus Aurelius said, if the task seems impossible, remember that you were made to endure it. Create your protocol. Be clear about what to do when you fall. Because the difference between giving up and evolving is not how many times you fail, but how quickly you decide to get up. And every time you get up, you don't come back from scratch. You come back more aware, more trained, and stronger. How to silence your negative thoughts. Think about that day you walk into a room and see a small stain on the wall. You look at it, think, I'll take care of it later, and move on with your life. Time passes, you get used to the stain, but deep down, it continues to bother you. Until one day the wall starts peeling and you realize the problem was much bigger than it seemed. Now stop for a moment and think, how often do you do this with your own thoughts? Do you ignore that little worry, that annoyance that seems insignificant but grows and spreads within you? This is how many of our problems begin, not suddenly, nor as something huge, but as a small negative idea that we leave there unresolved. The Stoics show us that our emotions and reactions are like a peeling wall. Epictetus said that it's not the things that happen that disturb us, but the meaning we give them. Negative thoughts act like seeds in a garden. The more you nurture them, the more they grow and suffocate the good within you and around you. It's not your boss's tone of voice, a friend's cold response, or the long line at the grocery store that bothers you. What truly disturbs you is how you interpret these situations and the importance you give them. When we stop dealing with these negative thoughts, it's like painting a moldy wall. It seems to solve the problem for a while, but soon the problem returns, even stronger. The true path is to seek the source of what's bothering you, stop hiding the problem, and face it head-on. For the Stoics, this meant questioning our own thoughts. Seneca said we should test every thought, and Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, asked a simple but powerful question. Is this under my control? If the answer was no, he simply stopped wasting energy on it. You can do the same. When something upsets you, ask yourself, why is this affecting me so much? Is this thought real or just a fear I've made up? Each time you calmly examine your thoughts, you realize that many of them aren't true. They're just automatic reactions, like a peeling wall because no one took care of the leak. Recognizing where your thoughts come from is like fixing the problem before repainting. It's at this moment that you realize you don't need to carry so many worries, as they often stem from unrealistic expectations or old fears that no longer make sense. Martin Seligman, the founder of positive psychology, showed that changing the way we interpret a situation can reduce anxiety and increase our sense of well-being. This means that when we change the way we view a problem, it also changes the weight it holds on us. For example, instead of thinking, I made a mistake, so I'm a failure, you can think, I made a mistake, but I can learn from it. This doesn't mean pretending your problems have disappeared or turning a blind eye to them, but rather choosing a smarter, healthier way to face them. Changing the way you see things doesn't erase challenges, but it completely changes how you react to them. And that makes all the difference. Try a simple exercise. Write your negative thoughts on a piece of paper, like cracks in a wall. For each one, ask yourself, is this real? Is it within my control? What are the chances of this fear actually happening? Then, replace these thoughts with truer, more positive versions. Something like I'll never make it can become I'll take it one step at a time and keep learning. But remember, recognizing the problem is only the first step. Like reform, you need to act. So always ask yourself, what's the smallest step I can take right now to change this? This way, your mind learns to act with clarity, even when everything seems out of control. Changing negative thoughts doesn't just mean hiding what we feel or trying to find quick solutions. It's a constant process that requires effort and attention, but it truly transforms your life. Each time you change a negative thought or choose to act better, your mind feels lighter, and you realize you have more control over what you feel and think. The tools for this change are already within you. Now it's time to put them into practice. 5. Non-negotiable minimum routine. There's a kind of discipline that doesn't stem from motivation, but from identity. It's the kind that doesn't depend on how you're feeling, the weather, or what happened during your day. It's a silent, almost invisible discipline, but it sustains everything you are. It's called a non-negotiable minimum routine, the set of small actions you perform, no matter what. The Stoics would call this inner praxis the act of living by principles, not by mood. Because if every emotion dictates what you do, you'll be a slave to the wind. But if your actions are born of firm principles, the world can fall apart, and still, you'll remain standing. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his diary before dawn, even as Emperor of Rome, He didn't do this because he had time, but because it was non-negotiable for him to take care of his own mind before taking care of the empire. This is the essence of the minimal routine. It's not about productivity, but about preserving clarity. Most people fail not because of a lack of ability, but because they treat discipline as an accessory, something you do when you can. The wise, however, understand that certain rituals are the cement of the mind. These are the habits that keep its structure firm even when everything around it seems to be crumbling. The non-negotiable minimum routine is your foundation, and it only needs to have 3 characteristics: simple, stable, and meaningful. 1. Simple. The first rule is, the more essential, the more powerful. The human mind can't handle 20 daily commitments, but it can handle 3 perfectly. Simplicity is the ally of consistency. Seneca said, "It is not the amount of time, but the use of it that matters." This means that half an hour well spent can be worth more than a whole day of distraction. Choose small anchors that you can repeat in any situation. For example, 10 minutes of reflective reading upon waking, 5 minutes of silence or breathing before starting the day, a brief record at the end of the night about what you learned and what needs to be improved. These gestures are small but powerful. They act as mental resets, reminding you of who you are and what truly matters, even when the world tries to distract you. 2. Stable. The second characteristic is stability. A non-negotiable minimum routine is like an internal wall. It holds because it doesn't change with the circumstances. Rain or shine, motivated or not, it happens. This stability builds confidence. You stop being someone who waits until you're well before taking action and become someone who takes action to get well. Neuroscience explains that consciously repeating small actions creates neural pathways of predictability, mental patterns that reduce stress and increase focus. In other words, your brain begins to understand that there is order, even when life is chaotic. And this sense of order is the first step towards serenity. Marcus Aurelius called this returning to center. He knew that if he performed his daily rituals of reflection, nothing external could rob him of his balance. The minimal routine is your center, the point to which you can always return. 3. Significant. Finally, your routine needs to make sense. There's no point in creating automatic obligations that don't connect with your essence. The minimum routine is not a prison, it is a pact with your values. It exists to remind you every day of who you decided to be. Think, what practices strengthen your mind and character? Which ones make you more centered, clear-headed, and present? These should be your non-negotiables. It could be a light workout, a page of philosophical reading, a few minutes of meditation or prayer, or even writing 3 sentences about what you learned that day. The format doesn't matter. What matters is the commitment to not negotiate with yourself. When you say, "This is non-negotiable," you're saying, "I matter." And every time he fulfills this pact, even when tired, even when in doubt, he reinforces his identity as someone trustworthy, someone who doesn't betray his word. The Stoics called this hegemonikon, mastery over oneself. Having a minimal routine is a practical way to cultivate this mastery on a daily basis, because true power lies not in occasional great deeds, but in small acts sustained with constancy and purpose. You can change cities, jobs, plans, but take your minimal routine with you. It's the fixed point in the midst of chaos. And when everything seems confusing, she will be the reminder that you are still on the path. Start small. Choose 3 simple actions that you will do every day without exception. Not as a productivity goal, but as a consistency ritual. It could be something as simple as taking a deep breath before checking your phone, writing a sentence about gratitude, or reviewing an important goal before bed. These gestures, repeated with purpose, shape character from the inside out. And over time you realize the world may change, people may come and go, but as long as your minimal routine holds up, so do you. As Marcus Aurelius said, the soul is colored by the actions it repeats. So color your days with gestures that reflect what is most firm in you. And when chaos strikes, your minimal routine will be the silent wall that protects you from the clutter, the constant reminder that inner strength is built one small habit at a time. 6. Respond slowly. Act quickly. We live in a time when everyone wants to respond before understanding. People react but don't reflect. They speak but don't think. They make impulsive decisions and then try to fix what they've ruined in haste. And that's precisely where the difference lies between those who act wisely and those who are constantly putting out fires. Stoicism teaches that strength lies not in being the first to react, but in being the last to lose control. If something irritates you, it is a sign that you have lost control of yourself, said Epictetus. And this simple phrase carries enormous power. It reminds us that self-control is intelligence in motion. Responding slowly is an art few master, and it completely changes how others perceive you. When someone tries to provoke you and you remain calm, it's not weakness, it's refined strength. It's the wisdom of someone who understands that the time between stimulus and response is the space of freedom. In that interval, you choose who you will be, reactive or rational, impulsive or strategic. Imagine the scene. A co-worker unfairly criticizes you in public. The automatic reaction would be to immediately defend yourself, perhaps even raise your voice. But the Stoic does it differently. He breathes, observes, and lets silence do what haste never can, reveal what truly matters. When you respond slowly, you see more, and those who see more act better. A quick response may seem like power, but it's just noise. True power comes from precise action, not haste. And that's where the second part of this practice comes in. Act quickly when the decision is already mature. Responding slowly is not the same as postponing forever. The weak hesitate, the wise wait for the right moment, and when it arrives, they act with precision. Marcus Aurelius said, "The best revenge is to be different from the one who hurt you." This phrase teaches something profound. Don't react to chaos with more chaos. Wait for the moment when reason takes over, and only then act. In practice, this means training 2 times: the pause and the action. Pause time is when you think. It's when you observe your emotions as if you were outside them. It's when you notice anger rising, pride trying to speak louder, fear wanting to decide for you. And instead of giving in, you choose to breathe and wait. The time for action is the opposite. It's when the plan is already clear and hesitation no longer serves. It's the moment to get up, do it, resolve it. It's when the mind has already understood the path and the body simply obeys. At this point, acting quickly is the key to not letting fear or doubt overwhelm courage. The Stoics knew how to balance these 2 times like few others. They didn't confuse slowness with wisdom nor speed with impulsiveness. Seneca said that haste is the most costly waste of time. He saw impulsiveness as a form of weakness, a mind unable to bear the weight of silence. But he also warned of another danger: paralysis. As long as we think too much about what to do, we fail to do it. Therefore, the secret lies in harmony, thinking calmly, acting firmly. Modern science confirms this balance. Studies in cognitive psychology show that the human brain has 2 decision-making systems: the fast, emotional, and intuitive, System 1, and the slow, rational, and analytical, System 2. The most effective people don't eliminate either. They just know when to use each. When something triggers intense emotion, it's System 1 that wants to act, and that's when you need to slow down. Give System 2 time to step in and bring clarity, but when the mind has already analyzed and decided, overthinking becomes sabotage. At that moment, it's the body that needs to move, and fast. To train this, use 3 simple practices. The 3-second rule. Before responding to something emotional, take a deep breath and count to 3. It may not seem like much, but it's enough to shift your brain out of reactive mode and regain control. The 2-minute rule. Once you know what needs to be done, don't overthink it. Start within 2 minutes. This action breaks mental inertia and shows your brain that you're in control. The pause diary. At night, reflect on how many times you reacted in a hurry and how many times you waited. This simple act of review will show you whether you're truly mastering your response time. Responding slowly is an act of conscience. Acting quickly is an act of courage. Together, they form one of the most powerful virtues of the human mind: precision. When you master this art, you become someone trustworthy, respected, and above all, calm. Remember, haste makes you appear strong for a moment, but calm makes you unshakable for a lifetime. As Marcus Aurelius said, the power of living well lies in using time wisely. So the next time something throws you off balance, choose silence over words and action over doubt. It is in this rhythm that life becomes light and decisions become accurate. And if you're enjoying the content, consider becoming a channel member. Besides helping the channel, you'll also get exclusive content. Click the link in the description and become a member now. Back to content. 7. Face fear like a Stoic. Tell me this: how many times have you held back from taking action because you were worried about what others might think? How many good ideas have you held back from trying because you were afraid of criticism? And how many opportunities have you missed out on for fear of making mistakes? Fear is like a maze full of locked doors. The more you run from it, the more it seems to surround you, to the point of preventing you from moving forward. It not only limits what you do, but also robs you of your potential, turning the chances you had into regrets. But there is a liberating truth. The problem isn't fear itself, but how much you feed it. The more you try to run from it or imagine the worst, the more it grows, like a shadow that seems enormous but isn't. What you feed grows stronger, and what you face shrinks. The Stoics saw fear differently. For them, fear should not be ignored, but understood. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, wrote, "If something outside yourself causes you concern, it is not that which affects you, but the judgment you make of it. And that judgment can be changed right now." That's the secret. You have the power to change the way you view fear, and in doing so completely transform the way you live. Think of fear as a dark room. From a distance, it appears filled with strange shadows, filled with frightening shapes. But when you turn on the light and look closely, you realize that all that was there was just a bit of dust and mess. Fear grows in the darkness, but disappears when the light of understanding appears. There is a Stoic practice called premeditation of evil that can help you deal with this. It's simple. Clearly imagine the worst that could happen. Think about that presentation that makes you nervous or that difficult decision you've been avoiding. Then ask yourself, if the worst really happens, what could go wrong? And if it does, how can I deal with it? Almost always the answer will be, I can deal with it. When you illuminate your fears with this kind of reflection, they lose their power and stop seeming like enormous monsters. As Confucius said, it is better to light a small candle than to complain about the darkness. Susan Jeffers, author of the book Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway, showed that taking just a small step toward what scares you greatly reduces the intensity of fear. It's like thinking a river is deep, but then putting your foot in the water, discovering it's much shallower than it seemed. Remember, movement shatters the illusions of fear. So, what can you do now to get started? First, identify your fear clearly. If you think, I'm afraid of failing, ask yourself, failing at what? What exactly scares me about that? When the fear has a name, it becomes smaller and easier to manage. Then, use the worst-case scenario technique and ask yourself, if everything goes wrong, what would be the real consequence? Could I handle it? When you face your fear head-on, you discover that the consequences aren't as dire as you imagined. Finally, act even when you're afraid. Don't wait until you feel fully prepared. Take the smallest step possible, but keep moving forward. With each step, the fear diminishes and you become stronger. Fear doesn't have to be an enemy. It can be a guide, showing you the paths where there's the greatest opportunity for growth. Often, what scares us most holds the greatest transformative power. This doesn't mean ignoring real dangers, but learning to distinguish between what's a true threat and what's simply challenging your limits. Always ask yourself, Is this fear a warning of danger or a sign that I'm about to grow? In the end, the decision is yours. You can continue to feed stories that hold you captive or begin to write a new journey. Fear only has power if you allow it. And if you know someone who needs to hear this, share this message. Subscribe to the channel, and follow us on this journey to transform fear into strength and wisdom. 8. Organize your mind like a Stoic. Imagine this. Anna is an ordinary person, the kind who seems to have everything in place. She has a good job, friends, a loving family. On the surface, everything seems perfect. But in a conversation, she told me something that really resonated with me. She said, "Whenever I make a mistake, I feel like a failure. My head keeps repeating phrases like, 'Why do you always mess up?' Or, 'You'll never be good enough.'" Anna was waging a silent war within herself. The words she said to herself were like invisible weights she carried every day, leaving her tired and drained of energy. The saddest part was that she didn't even realize how much this internal dialogue hurt her. Now think, how many times have you done this to yourself? How many times have you been crueler to yourself than you would be to someone you love? The truth is, no one speaks to you more than you do to yourself, and what you say to yourself has enormous power. These words aren't just thoughts, they're like seeds you plant in your mind, and the type of seed you choose determines what will grow. Marcus Aurelius, the wise Stoic emperor, said that your happiness in life depends on the quality of your thoughts. He was right. Talking badly about yourself is like trying to run a marathon while carrying a backpack full of rocks. Each step gets harder until the path seems impossible. The problem isn't the road, but the weight you choose to carry. Carl Jung, one of the greats of psychology, said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will control your life, and you will call it fate." This is very true. Every time you criticize yourself mercilessly, you reinforce negative patterns within yourself, and over time these patterns begin to dictate your choices and distort the way you see yourself. Every life experience, like rejection, fear, and sadness, can become a kind of mental monster that dominates your decisions if you don't face it head-on. Remember Anna's story. One day, I asked her, "If your best friend made the same mistake as you, what would you say to her?" Anna remained silent, so I continued, "Why do you talk to yourself in a way you would never talk to anyone else?" That simple question changed everything. She realized she'd been her own worst enemy when she could have been her own best friend. Over time, Anna began replacing thoughts like, "I'm a failure," with, "I'm learning, and that takes time." This transformation didn't happen overnight, nor was it easy, but with each small change, she felt lighter and more confident. The Stoics had a powerful habit. Instead of losing themselves in criticism and regret, they chose to turn mistakes into lessons. This mindset made them stronger, calmer, and better prepared to move forward without destroying themselves from within. Seneca said that making mistakes is part of human nature, but continuing to make them on purpose is a big mistake. This doesn't mean we should pretend mistakes don't exist, but rather learn from them and move forward. Constantly beating yourself up for past mistakes is like trying to row against a current without realizing the boat is leaking. When you fix that boat, that is, change the way you talk to yourself, it starts moving in the right direction. This doesn't make life easier or problems disappear, but it gives you clarity and courage to deal with whatever comes your way. Here's a simple exercise you can start right now. When faced with a mistake or difficulty, pay attention to the words you use to yourself. Write down what you think, either on paper or in your phone's notes. Doing this will help you see how you treat yourself in moments of stress. Then read what you wrote and ask yourself, would I speak this way to someone I love? If the answer is no, change the words. Replace phrases like, "I never get anything right," with, "I'm learning and that takes time." Every night, take a few minutes to reflect. Was I kind to myself today? What can I do better tomorrow? This simple practice changes the way you relate to yourself. Over time, your mind stops being a place of war and becomes a space of clarity and strength. You will still make mistakes, like every human being, but you will learn to deal with them in a calmer and more mature way. Ultimately, if you're not on your own side, who will be? Be your own ally. Remember, the words you use to yourself can lift you up or tear you down, and only you can choose which path to follow. 9. Strengthen your attention muscle. The human mind is like an invisible muscle. The more you train it, the stronger it becomes. But like any muscle, if you let it weaken, it loses its firmness, clarity, and ability to sustain focus. We live in a time when attention has become the most contested commodity in the world. Every notification, every short video, every new tab open competes for seconds of your focus, and, little by little, steals the energy you should be investing in yourself. That's why strengthening your attention is, today, one of the greatest acts of personal power. The Stoics knew this 2,000 years ago. Marcus Aurelius said, "The quality of your life depends on the quality of your attention." For him, attention was the foundation of virtue, because only those who are able to perceive their own thoughts can master them. And the opposite is also true. When the mind wanders, the body acts without direction. Time is lost and life becomes reactive, a sequence of impulses, not choices. Training your attention is like regaining control of your own consciousness. It's about stepping out of automatic mode and becoming the captain of your own ship again. The problem is that many people confuse focus with tension. They try to concentrate forcefully, frowning and clenching their fists, when, in fact, true focus comes from lucid relaxation, from being fully present, but without rigidity. It's the state of someone who observes calmly without trying to control everything. Think of how an archer prepares to hit a target. They don't draw the bow abruptly or release the arrow in anger. They breathe, center their gaze, quiet their body, and then act. The arrow comes out true because their mind was fully engaged in the gesture. This should be your focus, a gentle but unwavering attention. The first step to strengthening this muscle is reduce unnecessary stimuli. The mind weakens when forced to constantly switch between tasks. Every time you check your phone, switch tabs, or stop reading, your brain needs minutes to reconnect. This drains energy and destroys your state of presence. The Stoics would call this losing control of the self, allowing yourself to be enslaved by external distractions. Try a simple exercise. Choose a single task and dedicate yourself to it for 25 minutes, without interruptions. No cell phone, no open tabs, no conversations, then rest for 5 minutes. This short workout, known today as the Pomodoro technique, is a modern example of what the ancients would call discipline of attention. It's not about working harder. It's about working wholeheartedly. Another step is practice mindful observation. Marcus Aurelius wrote daily to train his inner gaze. He reviewed his reactions, thoughts, and emotions. Do the same. Throughout the day, notice how often your mind wanders. When you realize you've gotten distracted, don't blame yourself. Simply bring your attention back, like calling a horse to the stable. Each time you do this, you're strengthening the muscle of presence. And remember, focus isn't just about shutting out distractions, it's about give direction to attention. You can be focused on something irrelevant and think you're being productive. So every morning, define your high-energy task, the one thing that, if done, makes the day worthwhile. Put it at the center of your schedule and treat it as a sacred commitment. Neuroscience confirms what the Stoics intuited. Studies show that attention is a limited resource. When dispersed in too many directions, it quickly depletes. Andrew Huberman, a researcher at Stanford University, explains that focus can be trained by consciously alternating between periods of effort and relaxation. This means that to sustain focus, you also need breaks. Just as the body needs rest between workouts, the mind needs silence between stimuli. For the next few days, practice this. Start your day with a mindfulness ritual. It could be writing for 10 minutes, walking without headphones, or just observing your breath. Eliminate unnecessary noise, close unused tabs, mute notifications, and set fixed times to check messages. Practice presence in conversations. When someone speaks, look them in the eye and listen with full attention. This practice strengthens not only focus, but also empathy. Attention is the filter through which all your experience passes. If it's cloudy, the world seems chaotic. If it's clear, the world becomes orderly. Strengthening the attention muscle is, therefore, the same as strengthening the mind. It's transforming noise into direction, impulse into purpose, and fatigue into clarity. And when you realize you're tired or distracted, don't judge yourself, just come back. Each return to the present is a silent exercise in power. As Seneca said, no wind is favorable to those who don't know where they're going. And focus is precisely that, the rudder that keeps the boat steady, even when the sea tries to drag you away. Training your attention means learning to choose at every moment where to place your energy. And when you master this, you discover something extraordinary, that true freedom lies not in doing everything, but in being fully present in what you do. But there's something important to understand. If you've been trying for a long time to step out of your comfort zone and learn more, but haven't been able to, there might be something you're not aware of. I know what it might be. Anxiety. Anxiety is like a snake that creeps up silently and affects you without you even realizing it. It leaves you feeling unwell for days, months, and even years. Living like this is like being sick all the time. But I know a solution. Stoic philosophers, along with modern psychology, have a way to help you get rid of it. I managed to cure myself of this anxiety. I made a video explaining how you can get rid of this problem, and it's in the first comment. Click the link in the first comment and start healing yourself from this feeling of anxiety. 10. Turn doubts into useful questions. Doubt is one of the most ambiguous forces in the human mind. It can be the engine of growth or the root of paralysis. When misdirected, it turns into anxiety, indecision, and fear. But when used wisely, it transforms into clarity, focus, and progress. The difference between a confused mind and a lucid one lies in a simple choice: what you do with your doubts. The Stoics viewed thought as a tool of precision. They knew that it's not the quantity of questions that matters, but their quality. Seneca said, "No wind is favorable to those who do not know where they are going." And this also applies to doubts, because a poorly formulated doubt is like a boat without a rudder. It wastes energy but gets nowhere. How many times have you found yourself trapped in thoughts like, what if this goes wrong? What if I'm not good enough? What if no one understands me? These questions don't provide answers, they only fuel fear. They spin in circles, making the mind believe it's thinking, when in fact it's just defending itself against its own insecurity. The confused mind doesn't need more answers, it needs best questions. Questions that bring light, not fog. Questions that open paths instead of multiplying dead ends. This is the art of transforming doubts into guiding tools. Marcus Aurelius practiced this every day in his meditations. When he found himself in internal conflict, he didn't ask, "Why is this happening to me?" but rather, "What is under my control here?" This shift in focus changes everything. A useless question casts you as the victim. A useful question casts you as the strategist. Think about it. Every doubt is a seed. If you plant it in the soil of self-criticism, it grows into fear. If you plant it in the soil of reflection, it blossoms into wisdom. The difference lies in how you water it. For example, what if I fail? What can I learn if this doesn't turn out as I hope? What if they judge me? Why do other people's opinions have so much power over me? What if I can't do it? What's the smallest step I can take right now? When you change the structure of the question, you also change your mental state. Doubt stops being a threat and becomes a tool. It goes from being a cloud to a compass. And this is exactly what the Stoics called practical reason, the ability to use the mind as an ally, even in the midst of uncertainty. Epictetus taught that things do not disturb us. What disturbs us is our opinion of them. Doubt, therefore, is not the enemy. It is the mirror. It shows you where you still lack clarity, where your mind tries to control the uncontrollable or demand guarantees that life never promised. The function of doubt is not to paralyze you. It is to teach you to investigate. Modern psychology confirms this view. Nobel Prize winner Daniel Kahneman explains that our minds tend to seek quick answers, even when they are imprecise. This cognitive rush is what creates illusions of control and fear-based decisions. The solution, he says, is to replace impulsive judgment with deliberate questions. This is exactly what ancient philosophers did intuitively, questioning their own thinking before believing it. You can start this practice now. Whenever you feel your mind full of what-ifs, stop and write down your questions. Then, reformulate each one until they become practical questions. Check out this simple template: emotional doubt. What if I'm not good enough? Helpful question: what can I do today to improve a little more? Control doubt. What if things go wrong? Helpful question: what is in my control and what is not? Doubt of value. What if no one recognizes my effort? Helpful question: do I recognize my own effort? This simple exercise changes the axis of the mind. You move from fear to reasoning. And when reason returns to take the place of fear, serenity is born. The same serenity that the Stoics called ataraxia, the state of inner tranquility in the face of chaos. Remember, the questions you ask shape the life you live. Anyone who asks, "Why is this happening to me?" is living in drama. Anyone who asks, "How can I best handle this?" lives in direction. What you feed grows, and that goes for thoughts too. The next time doubt appears, don't reject it. See it as a teacher in disguise. Listen to what it wants to show you. Doubt only dominates you when you try to run from it. When you face it head-on, it loses its power. Breathe. Observe. Ask smarter questions. Turning doubt into a useful question is an act of mental discipline, and discipline is the bridge between confusion and clarity. Ultimately, it's not the absence of doubts that makes you strong, but the ability to think through them. As Seneca said, wisdom does not consist in not making mistakes, but in knowing how to discern them. Learn to use your doubts as compasses, and each uncertainty will become another step in your emotional maturity. 11. Change the thoughts that limit you. What do you do when a light bulb burns out? Do you keep trying to light it, hoping it will start working again on its own? Of course not. You replace it with a new one. So why do we dwell on thoughts that lead us nowhere? Those boring, repetitive thoughts that drain our energy, lower our confidence, and create space for anxiety. These thoughts are like tight shoes. Every step you take with them hurts more until it becomes impossible to continue. You take off your shoe, right? So why not do the same with the ideas that limit you? Cleanthes of Assos, a disciple of Zeno of Citium, said, "As running water shapes stone, so thoughts shape the mind." This quote reminds us that the way we think shapes how we see the world and experience life. The problem is that we often let sad or heavy thoughts leave deep scars within us, turning small situations into major dramas. When we view something negatively and repeat that thought over and over, we end up believing it to be the pure truth. But in reality, these thoughts can be changed, just as we replace a burned-out light bulb with a new one. Changing "I can't" to "I'm learning" isn't just a nice phrase, it actually changes the brain. Dr. Andrew Huberman explains that every time we choose to think differently, we create new connections in the brain. Imagine you're walking through a muddy field. At first, getting out seems difficult, each step is heavy and tiring. But if you choose another path and stick with it, you'll forge a new trail, steadier, cleaner, and leading to a better destination. Thoughts work like tools. If you try to hammer in a nail with a screwdriver, no matter how much you try, it won't work. But when you pick up the hammer, the work flows naturally. The same happens with the mind. If a thought no longer helps you, why keep it? Replace it with one that brings you clarity. Think of your thoughts as instruments that need to be well cared for. Throw away the rusty ideas that only hinder you and choose others that open doors to new opportunities. Understand that positive, clear thinking has the power to brighten your entire day. At first, change is difficult because every transformation requires effort, but that's how you build something that lasts. Each time you decide to think better, you create a new mental pathway. Over time, this changes your entire life. So ask yourself, what thought can I exchange today for one that brings me lightness and strength? This simple choice can be the first step toward a new direction. Remember, You don't need to carry old ideas that only weigh down your heart. Try replacing them with thoughts that push you forward. 12. Use invisible progress metrics. The most common mistake of those seeking to evolve is to measure everything with their eyes, when true transformation happens in the invisible. The most powerful changes, mental, emotional, and spiritual, don't appear in photographs, numbers, or applause. They happen silently, inside the minds of those who persist even when nothing seems to change. We live in a culture obsessed with visible results: followers, numbers, likes, money, awards, recognition. But the Stoics knew that this type of metric is fragile because it depends on the gaze of others. And anything that depends on the gaze of others holds you hostage. Marcus Aurelius said, "The reward of a good deed is the fact that it was done." This is the invisible metric, the silent satisfaction of knowing they acted according to their principles, even if no one saw it. Visible metrics serve the ego. Invisible ones serve character. The difference between the two defines the kind of life you are building. When you measure progress solely by external results, you create a trap. If the numbers go up, you feel good. If they go down, you doubt yourself. And so, your peace becomes hostage to variables you can't control. But when you start measuring progress by internal criteria, consistency, calm, courage, patience, presence, you discover something much more valuable: real growth. These invisible metrics don't accumulate in graphs, but in consciousness. Here are some simple examples. Instead of measuring success by how much you did, look at how focused you were even when you were tired. Instead of counting how many people praised you, look at how many times you did the right thing, even without applause. Instead of comparing yourself to the pace of others, notice how often you choose your own pace without guilt. Instead of measuring how much you earned, realize how much you resisted the urge to waste time on things that don't matter. These are the victories that shape the spirit. They are silent but solid. Seneca said that progress is not measured by how much we talk about virtue, but by how much we stop worrying about small things. This is the kind of metric that actually shows growth. When situations that once threw you off balance no longer shake you in the same way, you are evolving, even if no one notices. Modern psychology calls this latent growth, internal changes that precede visible results. They are like roots. They don't show on the surface, but they support the entire structure. This is why many give up before they blossom. They measure progress by looking at the ground instead of trusting the roots that are growing in the dark. The Stoics practiced this long-term vision. Marcus Aurelius wrote every day, not to be read but to be observed. He knew the value of the exercise lay in the act, not the applause. This kind of invisible metric is what gives strength on days when nothing seems to be moving forward. Because even when there are no outward signs of progress, there is an internal practice of virtue. Imagine someone practicing patience. From the outside, nothing seems to change. There are still lines, delays, and setbacks. But inside, there's a growing control over the impulse to react. This is an invisible victory, or someone who decides to be calmer in arguments. At first, anger still flares, but they learn to breathe before responding. No one notices, but it's at this moment that character is being forged. These small moments of self-control, these silent choices, are the building blocks of inner strength. The world may not applaud, but time will recognize them. Stoic philosophy teaches us that true greatness is built away from the spotlight. Virtue is sufficient for happiness, said Epictetus. This means that genuine progress is self-sufficient, it needs no witnesses. So create your invisible metrics. They can be simple but transformative. How many times have you reacted calmly instead of impulsively? How many times have you kept your word, even if you didn't want to? How many times have you chosen silence over pointless discussion? How many times have you been kind without needing to be seen? These are the indicators of invisible growth, the ones that build dignity, confidence, and serenity. Invisible constancy is more powerful than any sudden success because it creates deep roots. Over time, something magical happens. What was invisible begins to shine through naturally. Your speech becomes calmer, your presence firmer, your energy more centered. People feel the difference. even if they can't explain it. It's the light of someone who has grown from within. So stop demanding immediate results from yourself. Instead ask, am I clearer today than I was yesterday? More patient? More faithful to what I believe? These are the only metrics that really matter, because they don't depend on anyone else, only on you. True evolution is silent but constant, and one day, when you look back, you'll realize that everything has changed, not because the world recognized you, but because you've become someone it can't shake. 13. Shield yourself with elegant boundaries. There's a silent force that protects the peace of those who have learned to know themselves. Limits. Not those erected arrogantly, but those established with elegance and firmness. Having limits isn't about closing yourself off from the world. It's about ensuring that your energy, attention, and time are used wisely. It's about learning to say no calmly, without guilt, without excessive explanations, and without wasting yourself trying to please those who don't respect your space. The Stoics understood that freedom arises not from the absence of rules, but from self-mastery. No one is free unless he is master of himself, said Epictetus, and part of this mastery is knowing where you end and others begin. When everything is permitted, everything invades you. When nothing is filtered, everything wears you down. Elegant boundaries are the invisible filter that preserves your mental and emotional clarity amidst the chaos. Many people confuse boundaries with walls. A wall keeps you apart. A boundary protects you. A wall is built out of fear, a boundary out of awareness. A wall says, no one enters. A boundary says, enter with respect. And this difference completely changes the way you relate to the world. Think of someone who constantly tries to please others. They say yes when they mean no, accept responsibilities that aren't theirs, and end up overextending themselves to the point of exhaustion. Over time, they begin to feel angry, not at others, but at themselves, for not protecting themselves. This silent anger is the price of not setting boundaries. Seneca said that, "He who tries to please everyone pleases no one, least of all himself." Elegant boundaries are therefore an act of self-love. They are not born of rigidity, but of respect. Respect for your time, your focus, and your peace. Elegant boundaries are acts of presence. Setting boundaries isn't about pushing people away. It's about teaching the world to treat you the way you treat yourself. When you say no calmly, you're saying yes to what truly matters, and how you do it determines whether or not your boundaries are respected. Aggressive boundaries generate resistance. Fragile boundaries are ignored, but elegant boundaries create natural respect. They are conveyed through calm, coherence, and consistency. You don't need to over-explain yourself. The tone of your voice, the firmness of your gaze, and the consistency of your actions already communicate where the lines are. Marcus Aurelius said we should act with dignity without ostentation and firmness without harshness. This is the spirit of elegant boundaries. It's not imposition, it's harmony. You don't need to be harsh to be respected. You just need to know what's non-negotiable and live accordingly. What are graceful limits in practice? It's turning off your cell phone when you're with the person you love without having to explain. It's refusing a toxic conversation with a simple, "I'd rather not get into that subject." It's not reacting to provocations, showing that your energy is too valuable for other people's games. It's saying not today without guilt, because you understand that rest is also a commitment. It is choosing silence when the other wants war. These attitudes don't shout, but they teach. And the curious thing is that when you set clear boundaries, people tend to respect you more, even those who initially resisted. Because deep down, everyone recognizes the strength of those who have self-control. Limits as emotional shielding. The absence of boundaries creates a kind of vulnerability that the modern world exploits mercilessly. Every notification, every request, every urgent message is an attempt to hijack your attention. If you don't protect your inner territory, you'll always be reacting, never choosing. Graceful boundaries are a practical way to regain control. When you learn to calmly say no, you begin to feel something rare, lightness. The lightness of not needing to be everywhere, please everyone, respond to everything. the lightness of existing at peace with your own choices. Neuroscience explains that every time you say yes when you meant no, your brain registers a small internal conflict, and this consumes mental energy and increases stress. However, the act of taking a clear stance, even if it's uncomfortable at the moment, generates internal coherence and a sense of psychological power. In other words, every healthy limit is a victory of reason over impulse. How to create your elegant boundaries. Define the essentials. Ask yourself, what is non-negotiable for me? Rest time, moments of focus, ethical values, healthy relationships. These are your pillars. Communicate calmly. Say what's necessary, without rigidity or lengthy justifications. The simpler it is, the more assertive it is. Back it up with action. A limit isn't what you say, it's what you maintain. If someone crosses it and you back down, it ceases to exist. Practice silence. Not every boundary needs to be explained. Sometimes silence is the most refined way to say, "Not here." Limit is a form of love. The Stoics saw limits as a virtue, an expression of sophrosyne, moderation. It is not artificial restraint, but the wisdom of acting in a balanced way. When you create graceful boundaries, you're not shutting the world out, you're organizing it. You're choosing to live consciously rather than reacting to everything all the time. Being firm is not the same as being cold. Being selective is not the same as being selfish. It's just understanding that your focus, your peace, and your presence are finite resources, and they deserve to be protected. In the end, elegant boundaries are the art of protecting what is essential without losing grace. They are not walls that isolate, but windows that let in only what illuminates. And when you learn to practice them, you discover a kind of power that requires no effort, the power of calm that respects itself. As Seneca said, "He who governs himself governs the world." And governing yourself begins by learning to say with serenity and conviction, "Here ends what I permit and begins what I protect." 14. Learn to be stronger than life's pressures. Think of yourself walking down a potholed road after a heavy rain. The ground is wet, full of holes, and every step feels like a challenge. Sometimes you feel like stopping, sitting down, and giving up, and the question that won't leave your head is, will I make it to the end? But the only way to cross this road is to keep walking, even slowly. Life, often, is exactly like that. Problems appear like stumbling blocks in your path, and negativity tries to make you fall. It's in these moments that your true strength needs to emerge. Marcus Aurelius said, "What blocks the path becomes the path itself." This idea shows us that difficulties aren't there to block us, but to make us stronger and more prepared. Every obstacle you face is an opportunity to become more resilient and wiser. An incredible example of this is Nick Vujicic, who was born without arms or legs. He could have given up early in life, but he chose to move forward. Nick shows that what matters is not what's missing, but what we can do with what we have. With courage and faith, he transformed his pain into motivation and his limitations into strength. Resilience researcher Edith Grotberg explains that finding meaning in difficult times makes us much stronger. When you begin to see problems as opportunities for growth, you understand that you can move forward even when the path seems impossible. Viktor Frankl, the creator of logotherapy, said something similar. When we can't change what's happening, we're invited to change ourselves. Facing challenges doesn't mean solving everything at once, but taking the next step, even if it's small. Because every step, no matter how small, brings you closer to where you want to go. Keep walking with patience and faith. If you've made it this far, remember, moving forward is already a victory. Thank you for walking with us until the end.